Have you ever watched a story break? In the world you know, Joffrey Baratheon is a monster on the Iron Throne. Here, the heir to the Seven Kingdoms is mucking out a stable in Winterfell, and the most honorable man in Westeros is 9 days into working on a prisoner in a cell beneath his own castle. 10 feet apart, 2 boys are asleep. One of them is called a bastard. One of them is called the heir to the Iron Throne. Both of them are wearing somebody else's name, and neither of them has any idea. The night is dark and full of theories. What if Ned Stark raised Joffrey Baratheon? This is not just a theory. This is the story of how one honest man committed 3 separate betrayals to save the soul of a monster, and of the letter he burned to do it. 4,000 likes and we release part 2. Discord's in the description. Let's begin. Act 1. The Asking. The covered bridge between the armory and the Great Keep is the warmest place in Winterfell that is not actually indoors, which is why Maester Luwin holds the harvest tallies there, and why Eddard Stark is standing on it at mid-morning with a wax tablet in his hand and a headache building behind his eyes. 400 bushels short in the Wolf's Wood holdfasts, 2 granaries at Torrens Square with rot in the floor, and a summer 9 years long, which every northerner over 40 says the same thing about, usually into a cup. A long summer means a long winter, and the gods keep better books than any maester. 9 years of good weather, and I still cannot fill Cerwyn's stores. What am I doing wrong, Luwin? Nothing, my lord. Lord Cerwyn is selling his surplus to White Harbor at a profit, and reporting the shortfall to you. He has done it for 6 years. I have mentioned it 4 times. Have you? I have. You keep deciding to believe him. It is one of your better qualities, and it is costing us roughly 900 bushels a year. Below them, the yard is full of noise, because the royal party has been inside these walls for 2 days, and the yard has not been quiet once. And that is where Ned's attention goes, and stays. There is a boy of 12 standing over a stable boy of about the same age. Golden-haired, in a doublet that costs more than the stable it is standing in front of. The stable boy is on the ground. There is a whip in the prince's hand. Not a real one, a training crop for a courser, but a boy on the ground does not particularly care about the distinction. Ned watches. Nobody in that yard moves. 2 Stark guardsmen are 8 feet away and looking very carefully at the middle distance, because that is a prince, and there is exactly one thing that happens to a northern man-at-arms who lays a hand on a prince. The crop comes down twice more. Then the prince gets bored and walks away, and the stable boy stays down until he is gone. My lord. I know. He is a guest, my lord. And a child. I know that too, Luwin. Send someone to the kennels for Sav, and do not tell me his name. If I know his name, I will have to do something about it, and if I do something about it, I start a war over a stable boy. That evening, Robert Baratheon takes him down into the crypts and stands in front of Lioness Stark for a long time, without managing to say anything at all. Then he says something Ned is not remotely ready for. I want to ask you for something, and I want you to hear all of it before you answer. That is not how you have ever asked me for anything in your life. No, it isn't. Robert puts his hand flat on the stone. He is enormous, and he is going gray, and there is a look on his face that Ned has seen exactly twice before, both times on a battlefield, both times right before Robert did something that cost him a great deal. Jon Arryn is dead, and I need a hand. That is what everyone thinks I came north to say, and it is what I meant to say. Then I got here. Ned, I have 3 children, and I do not know one of them. Not one. Tommen I have held perhaps a dozen times. Myrcella smiles at me the way you smile at a lord you have to be polite to. And Joffrey. Robert stops. Joffrey I know. That one I actually know. I have watched that boy for 12 years, and I know exactly what is in him, and I hate it. And I put it there by never once being in the room. Cersei raised him, and Cersei's father paid for it, and what came out the other end is a thing that whips a stable boy in a strange man's yard on his 2nd day as a guest, and does not even bother to check whether anyone is watching. I saw it. I know you saw it. That is not why I am asking. I am asking because I stood in your yard yesterday and watched your boy Robb lose a bout to old Cassell, and then go and thank him for it. And your girl, the little wild one, I watched her steal a lemon cake and give half of it to the fat kitchen boy and eat the rest under a stare like a criminal. And I thought, there is a man who did something right, and he did it here, in the cold, with no gold at all. Robert turns around. Take him. Take my son and make something out of him, because I cannot, and his mother will not, and his grandfather already has, and I do not like what he made. For a long time, neither of them says anything. Somewhere above, the wind gets into the crypt stair and comes down it like breathing. If I take him, I cannot be your hand. What? You cannot foster a boy from 1,000 miles away, Robert. It does not work. He would be here, and I would be in the Red Keep, and in 6 months he would be the little king of Winterfell, with nobody to tell him no, and I would have taught him one lesson only, which is that men say things and then leave. If you want me to do this, I do it here, which means you find another hand. Robert stares at him. Then he laughs, the awful, barking laugh, entirely without joy. Gods, you have not changed at all. Anyone else in this realm would have taken both. Both, Ned. The boy and the chain, and the power, and the whole ugly heap of it, and then given the boy to a maester and forgotten him by spring. I am aware. Fine. Fine. Take him. I will make Stannis my hand. He will hate it. He will do it perfectly, and he will make the next 5 years of my life miserable, which is probably what I deserve. And your conditions? Yours, I expect. 3. He comes as a ward and not as a prince. No household of his own, no southern servants, no exceptions at my table. 2nd, he works. Every ward in this castle works, and he will not be the one who does not. 3rd, and this is the one you will hate, his mother does not visit, not for 2 years. She may write, she may not come. Robert Baratheon looks at the stone face of the woman he did not marry. Done. Cersei Lannister finds out before that night is over, in a solar, with the door shut and Sir Barristan standing outside it, pretending very hard to be deaf, and what happens in that room can be heard in the kitchens. She is magnificent, and she is not wrong about a single thing she says. She points out that the boy is the heir to the Iron Throne, and is being sent to be raised by the man who once put a sword to her father's whole house. She points out that Robert has never once concerned himself with his children's education, and is now making it a matter of state. She points out, and this one lands because it is true, that Robert is doing this not for Joffrey, but for himself, because it costs him nothing and lets him believe he has finally been a father. Robert lets her finish. Then he uses the only argument he actually has, which is that he is the king. The last thing she says before the door opens is not to Robert at all. It is to her son, in the corridor, kneeling down so their faces are level, in a voice like warm honey. They are going to try to make you soft, sweetling, every one of them. And when they have, you come home to me, and I will make you whole again. Do not let them take anything out of you that I put in. She is gone within the fortnight, and the royal column goes south with her, and Joffrey Baratheon stands in the middle of the yard at Winterfell in a doublet worth more than the stable, and watches the last of it go around the bend of the King's Road. He is 12 years old. He does not cry. He does not speak either, for 2 days. Act 2. The Winter Lesson. Here is what nobody tells you about being a prince in the north. Nothing is warm. Not the water, not the food, not the beds, not the people. The hot springs do run through the walls, and the walls are genuinely warm, and every northerner in that castle will tell a southern boy so at length, which is how Joffrey Baratheon learns that a warm wall and a warm room are entirely different things, and that nobody here intends to do anything about the second one. Joffrey Baratheon's first month is a catalogue of small defeats. He refuses the porridge on the second morning and is told pleasantly by Lady Catelyn that supper is at dusk. He goes to bed hungry. He eats the porridge on the third morning. He orders a serving girl to fetch his boots, and she says, with genuine confusion, "My lord, they are by your bed." He has never once in his life picked up his own boots. He picks up his own boots. He tries the whip again in the second week on a kennel boy, and this time somebody does move. An enormous burned man who has been standing against the wall the entire time, and who takes the crop out of the prince's hand without appearing to hurry. "Give that back, dog." "No. You are sworn to me." "I'm sworn to keep you breathing." "Nothing in that oath about handing you sticks." Sandor Clegane came north because his sworn charge came north, and for no other reason. And he has spent 3 weeks discovering that he likes it here, which is deeply inconvenient to a man who has built an entire personality on liking nothing. Your father sent you here to be made into something. You want to know what I think? Doesn't matter what they make you into. You'll still be the one who remembers being this. That's the part that never washes off. Ask me how I know. He hands the crop to the kennel master and walks away, and Joffrey does not have the first idea what to do with any of that. And through all of it, Eddard Stark does almost nothing. That is the thing that confuses the boy most. Ned does not lecture him. Ned does not beat him. Ned does not even seem particularly angry with him, which somehow makes it worse. What Ned does is put him to work and then let the work do it. And the first time it actually lands is over a horse. Joffrey takes a courser out of the stables in his 5th week without asking, and rides it too hard over frozen ground, and the animal comes back lame. Not ruined, lame. It will be months. He expects to be shouted at. He has planned his answers. What he gets is Ned Stark standing in the stall looking at the horse's leg for a long time. Do you know his name? What? The horse. Do you know his name? No. His name is Ash. Farland's daughter named him when he was a foal, because he was gray and she was 6. He has been ridden by 4 people in this castle, and every one of them can tell you what he does when he is frightened, which is exactly what he did today, which is why he is standing like that. You will learn all of it. You will muck this stall out morning and evening. You will walk him. You will change the poultice on that leg twice a day, and you will do it until he is sound. If that takes until spring, it takes until spring. That is servant's work. It is. And it is also the only thing in the world that will fix that leg, which makes it the most important work in this castle right now, which makes the person doing it the most important person in this castle right now. I would think about that if I were you. He turns to go. Lord Stark, why aren't you punishing me? I am. You simply have not noticed yet, because you were expecting it to hurt. He stops in the stable door. I could have you whipped. Your grandfather would. Your mother would have someone else do it, and then come and comfort you afterward, which is worse. But a whipping is over in a minute, and then it belongs to me. It becomes a thing I did to you, and you get to spend the rest of your life being the boy that was done to. I am not giving you that. What you are going to have instead is dirt under your fingernails until spring, and blisters that break and heal and break again, and the taste of your own sweat in your mouth every morning before it is light. That will belong to you. Nobody will ever be able to take it off you or tell you it was somebody else's doing. That is worse. Yes, considerably. Joffrey Baratheon mucks out a stable that winter, twice a day, for 2 months and 11 days. He hates it for the first 3 weeks. He is silent through the 4th. Somewhere in the 5th, Farland the kennel master finds him talking to the horse. Not saying anything in particular, just talking, the way people do to animals when they think nobody can hear, and has the enormous good sense to walk away and never mention it to anyone. Meanwhile, the rest of the castle is dealing with him, and the results are mixed. Robb Stark tries. He is 14 and has decided with the terrible earnestness of a boy who has just worked out he will be a lord one day that this is his responsibility. He is unfailingly decent about it, and it drives Joffrey completely insane, because you cannot get a grip on a person who will not fight you. Sansa is 11 and worships the ground he walks on for approximately 6 weeks, which does him no good whatsoever and which he later says was the worst thing anyone did to him that year. Bran is 7 and asks him 100 questions about the Red Keep and the Dragon Skulls and whether he has ever seen a real Kingsguard fight. And Bran is the first person in Winterfell that Joffrey is ever actually kind to, and it happens by accident, and he does not notice he has done it. And Arya Stark, aged 9, declares open war on the second day and never once signs a peace. You hold your sword like you're afraid of it. I have been trained by knights of the Kingsguard. Then they're rubbish. Robb, tell him. I am not getting into this. Coward, look. Septim Ordain says a lady shouldn't correct a prince, so I'm not correcting you, I'm just standing here saying true things very loudly near your face. The single most repeated story in Wintertown that winter, told in every inn from the gate to the market, is the one where the Prince of the Seven Kingdoms chases a 9-year-old girl 3 times around the Great Hall and does not catch her once. The North, meanwhile, has opinions. And there is one more thing that changes that winter, and almost nobody in the castle notices it happening. Jon Snow was going to take the Black. He had it settled. He asked his uncle Benjen at the welcoming feast to take him north when the watch rode home. And it was arranged the way things are arranged in the head of a 14-year-old with wine in him at a long table. Benjen Stark says no, kindly, and twice. You're 14. You've never held a woman, never been past these walls, never had one thing worth giving up. And that is the whole of the vow, boy. It costs nothing to swear away a life you haven't had. Come to me at 18, and I'll take you gladly, and you'll be worth 10 of what I've got. Come now, and in 6 years, you'll hate me. And worse, you'll hate the wall. In the history we all know, that refusal does not hold for a fortnight, because Eddard Stark rides south to be hand, and Catelyn Stark makes it extremely clear that no bastard is going to live in Winterfell while she is the one running it. And Jon Snow goes because there is nowhere else on this earth for him to be. But Ned is not going south. Ned is standing right there in the yard every morning, and Catelyn, who has had every argument about that boy she is ever going to have, never gets to make the only one that would have worked. So Jon Snow stays. He stays with a black cloak he never puts on, and an uncle who told him to come back in 4 years. And he is still there, hauling water, when everything else in this story happens. Word of the fostering comes back as a low, unhappy noise from every hall between the neck and the wall, because the North remembers a sack of a city and 2 children in crimson cloaks. The great John Umber rides down from Last Hearth in the 2nd month specifically to say so to Ned's face, at the high table, at volume, with a chicken in his hand. You've put a lion cub in your own hall, Stark. He is a stag, my lord. He's his mother's, is what he is. And his mother is Tywin Lannister, with different equipment. What happens in 10 years when that boy sits the Iron Throne and remembers every time one of us looked at him sideways? You've not fostered a prince, you've kept a grudge warm and fed it twice a day. That is a fair question, and I have no answer to it. Then why, in 7 hells? Because he is 13, and somebody had to. The great John Umber sits with that for a while. Then he tears the chicken in half and hands the larger piece down the table to the boy in question without looking at him, which in the North is roughly equivalent to a formal apology, and never raises the subject again in his life. There is also the matter of what the fostering costs, which nobody in the songs ever thinks about. 40 extra mouths in the first month. A Bravosi glassmaker paid a small fortune to mend the glass gardens after the prince, in his 2nd week, throws a stone through a panel to see what happens. And an entire additional line in the ledgers that Maester Luwin labels with what Ned eventually realizes is deliberate and sustained pettiness, his Grace's education. 2 years of it. It is not cheap. And in the spring of the 2nd year, a letter comes from Casterly Rock offering, with immaculate courtesy, to defray the cost. Ned burns it in the hearth without finishing it, which is the first of 3 letters he burns in this story, and by far the easiest. Here is what nobody at Winterfell knows yet, and what makes everything in this story go the way it goes. 9 days before the royal party left, a 7-year-old boy climbed the broken tower, the way he had climbed it 100 times, and saw 2 people through a window who should not have been in that room together, and a man in gold armor put his hand out and let him fall. Bran Stark has been asleep since the day Joffrey's mother rode south. He has not woken. Maester Luwin has stopped saying he will. And before this winter is out, A man is going to come through the window of that sick room with a dagger of Valyrian steel, and everything in this story is going to change, including Ned Stark, in a way that nobody who loves him will ever be able to look at directly. Now back to it. Act 3. Two wrong names. The thing about Jon Snow and Joffrey Baratheon is that they should have understood each other immediately and instead spent 4 months trying to be the last one talking. They have almost everything in common. Both are outsiders in a family. Both have been told exactly what they are since before they could walk and have built their whole personality around it. The only difference is which lie they got. One of them is called a bastard and is in fact the true-born son of a prince and a princess of the north, married in a tower in Dorne with the letters to prove it in a locked box under his father's bed. The other is called the heir to the Iron Throne, and is in fact the product of a queen and her twin brother, with no claim to anything at all beyond what an axe can hold. Neither of them knows. Only one man in that castle knows either half of it, and he is not telling, and the not telling is going to cost him more than he has any idea. They fight in the yard in the 3rd month. Properly, not training, an actual fight over something stupid, which is how all of them start. Joffrey says something about mothers. Jon Snow, who has been not saying things about mothers for 14 years, stops not saying them. Sir Roderick Cassel pulls them apart. Both of them are bleeding. Jon has a tooth loose, and Joffrey cannot close his left eye. And Ned Stark, who has broken up perhaps 200 fights in that yard, does the thing that afterward is the only piece of his fostering that anybody in the North remembers well enough to copy. He does not punish either of them. He puts them both on the same duty. For 6 weeks, the bastard and the prince haul water for the glass gardens together, twice a day, up the same stair, in silence. Somewhere in the 5th week, the silence breaks, and it breaks because Jon Snow is carrying 2 yokes to Joffrey's 1, and Joffrey finally says something about it. Why do you take 4 buckets? Because I can? That is not why. Jon puts the yoke down. Because if I do the same as everyone else, I'm the bastard who does the same as everyone else. If I do twice as much, I'm the one who does twice as much. Nobody's ever going to give me anything, so the only thing I can do is be so obviously good at something that they can't take it back. That's the whole of it. That's every day of my life. Are you happy? Joffrey stands there in the steam of the glass gardens, holding 1 bucket. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Fine. No, you don't understand. It's stupid because it works. That's the stupid part. I've had everything given to me since the day I was born, and there isn't one single thing anybody would say I'm good at. Not one. You've got nothing, and everyone in this castle already knows what you are. Do you have any idea how much I hate that? Jon Snow looks at him for a long moment. Then he picks the yoke back up. Take 2 buckets then. What? Take 2. That's how it starts. Nobody starts at 4. It is not a friendship. It never really becomes one. They are both far too much themselves for that. But from that day, the two of them work in something that stops being silence and starts being quiet, which is a different thing, and Sandor Clegane notices it and says nothing to anybody, and files it away as the first genuinely interesting development in a life he had otherwise written off. And it is Jon Snow, 6 weeks later, on a night when half the castle has ridden out to hunt and the other half is drunk, who smells smoke from the library tower and starts shouting. The fire is a distraction. Everybody works that out within about 10 minutes. What takes longer to work out is that a man with a Valyrian steel dagger has already gone through the window of the sick room where Bran Stark has been sleeping for 4 months, and that he has been stopped by 2 things, a dire wolf that should not have been in that room, and a woman who put her own hands on the blade. Catelyn Stark loses most of the use of 3 fingers that night. Summer takes the man's throat out and does not let go until Ned pulls him off. And the assassin, this is the part that matters. This is the hinge of the entire story. The assassin does not die. And before any of the rest of it, before the cells, before the 9 days, Eddard Stark does something he never tells a single living soul about. He goes and checks his ward. Because the boy who benefits most from a crippled Stark heir never waking is the boy sleeping under his own roof. Because Robert said in this castle, in front of witnesses, that he would rather his own son died than lived like that. And there was a golden-haired child in the room when he said it, taking notes on what pleases a father. Because the cat's paw's dagger is Valyrian steel, and a common cutthroat does not own one. And there is precisely one person in Winterfell that winter who has been raised close enough to that kind of steel to think of it as a thing you can simply take. So Ned goes through the boy's chamber while he is at the stables. Every chest, the lining of the cloaks, the floor under the bed. He does it himself, and he does it at speed, and he hates every second of it. There is nothing. There was never going to be anything. He is standing in the middle of a 13-year-old's room with the boy's spare boots in his hands when he understands what he has just done and what it means that he did it first, before he went to the cells, before he went anywhere. He puts the boots back exactly where they were. He never mentions it. Not to Catelyn, not to Roderick, not to the boy. 2 years later, standing in the Godswood with the boy's mother, he will confess one of the 2 worst things he did that winter and keep the other. This is the one he keeps. Act 4. The Girl in the Tower. Myrcella Baratheon is 8 years old, and she has worked out that her letters are being read. She works it out the way children do, slowly, and then all at once. Her letters take 4 days to send, and the ravens go out every morning. Her mother asks her at supper about a thing Myrcella only ever wrote down. And there is the smell of burnt paper in the solar on a morning with no fire lit for warmth. So she starts writing 2 letters. One of them she gives to her Septa, and it is very good. It says that she prays for her brother every night, that she hopes the north is not too cold, that she is learning her stitches. It says nothing at all. The other one she writes at night and hides in the lining of a cushion because she has nobody to give it to. And she is 8, and she does not really know what else to do with the truth except put it somewhere. Dear Joff, Mother is not well. She does not say it, and everyone pretends. She goes to the sept in the middle of the night. She sent Tommen's kittens away and told him they ran off. Father has not come to supper in 19 days, I counted. Uncle Stannis is hand now, and he does not speak to anybody except a man with the ends of his fingers cut off, and he looks at me sometimes like he is doing sums about me. Everyone in this castle is being very careful, and nobody will tell me what about. Please write to me properly. Please write something Mother has not decided you should say. Tommen is 7 and has understood none of it, which is the only mercy in the Red Keep that year. He asks after his brother once a week for the first 2 months, and then stops, and Myrcella notices exactly when he stops and cannot get him to start again. And their mother sits in a tower above the both of them and does the arithmetic that Cersei Lannister has been doing since she was a girl. What is being taken from me? Who is taking it? And what will I have to do to get it back? The answer she arrives at is not sane, but it is not stupid either, which is the thing people forget about Cersei Lannister. She has 3 children. 2 of them are here. One of them is 1,000 miles away, being changed into something she will not recognize, in the house of a man who once rode into King's Landing and looked at her father like something he had scraped off a boot. She writes to her son every fortnight for 2 years, and every time she writes the same thing 4 different ways, which is, remember who you are. She does not write to her husband at all. And in the 18th month, she starts writing to somebody else as well. 1 letter, to a man she has never once mentioned to her husband. And that is the letter that eventually brings her north. Act 5, 9 days. Now we come to it. The man who came through the window of Bran Stark's sick room is a nobody, a hired knife, no house, no name worth the ink. He knows one useful thing in the entire world, and it is who paid him. Eddard Stark takes him into the cells beneath the first keep, and Sir Roderick goes with him, and Jory Cassel stands the door. And on the second day, Sir Roderick Cassel comes out and does not go back in. On the fourth day, Jory Cassell asks to be relieved of the door, and is relieved of it without a word being said about why, and a man named Alan stands it instead, and Alan is 19 and does not know how to ask for anything. On the sixth day, Maester Luwin is sent for. He is sent for at the 3rd hour of the morning, and he takes his bag and he goes down, and what he does down there is keep a man alive who does not want to be. There is a version of Eddard Stark that everybody in the Seven Kingdoms recognizes, and it is a man who says that the one who passes the sentence should swing the sword, and means it, and has meant it every day of his life. That man executed a deserter in front of his 7-year-old son 4 months ago and made the boy watch because he believed the watching was the point. That man is not in the cell. The man in the cell has a boy asleep upstairs who has not opened his eyes since autumn, and a wife who will never hold the needle again, and a name in front of him that he cannot get out, and he has worked out. And this is the thing. This is exactly the thing. He has worked out that being the man he has always been is not going to produce that name. So he stops being him. Deliberately, with his eyes open. He decides it, the way you decide to lift something heavy. On the 9th day, he gets the name. And Joffrey Baratheon, who has been mucking out a stable in the yard directly above those cells for 4 months, and who knows every door in that castle by now, is the one who finds him. He goes down because Alan is not at the door. Alan is throwing up behind the armory, which is its own story. And he goes down because he is 13 years old and there is an open stair, and everything after that happens in about 90 seconds. He does not go all the way in. He does not have to. He comes back up into the yard and stands in the snow for a while. Then he is sick. Then he goes and finds Sandor Clegane, because Sandor Clegane is the only person in Winterfell he can imagine saying this to. I need you to tell me I saw wrong. I wasn't there. Can't tell you that. The hand of the king is down there. Lord Stark. With that man. And he has been down there for days, and everyone in this castle knows, and nobody is doing anything. They are all just walking about. Roderick walked past me this morning and said, "Good day." I? That's it? He's the honorable one. That's the whole thing about him. That's the entire thing everyone says. Sandor Clegane puts his back against the wall and slides down it until he is sitting, which brings his head roughly level with the boys. Listen, I've served your father, your mother, and your grandfather's house, and I'll tell you the same about every one of them and about Stark too. There's no such thing as the honorable one. There's men who've never been asked the question. And there's men who've been asked. Stark went 35 years without anybody asking him properly. Then someone put a knife in his boy's bed. Now we know. That can't be all it is. Why not? Because if that's all it is, then nobody's anything. Then it's all just, nobody's had the chance yet. Sandor Clegane looks up at him with something that is not quite respect, but is in the same family. Now you're getting it. And here's the rest of it, since you've come this far. Watch his hands at supper tonight. He doesn't wash them. Not properly, not the nails. 9 days, and he sits down at that table with his wife and his children, and he passes the bread. Your grandfather does exactly the same thing at Casterly Rock, and he's been doing it for 40 years, and nobody in the West has ever once called him honorable for it. So there's no difference. There's one. Tywin Lannister sleeps. Look at Stark's face and tell me he does. That night, Joffrey Baratheon does not sleep, and at some point in the small hours, he does the single most important thing he has ever done in his life, which is that he gets up and goes and sits with Bran Stark. Nobody asked him to. Nobody knows he does it. He does it again the next night and the night after, and he keeps doing it for 9 weeks, and he is doing it on the night in the spring when the boy finally opens his eyes. Bran Stark wakes to a golden-haired boy asleep in a chair beside his bed with his mouth open, and his first words in 6 months are, hoarsely and to nobody in particular, "Why is the prince in my room?" And here is the thing that every person in that castle needs and does not get, and it is the reason this story goes the whole of its length without a war. Bran Stark does not remember. Not the climb, not the window, not the hand. He remembers breakfast that morning. He remembers his mother telling him not to climb, and he remembers deciding to climb anyway. Then there is nothing at all until a golden-haired boy, asleep in a chair 6 months later. Maester Luwin says this is common with a blow to the head, and says it more than once, to more than one person, and each time he says it, Catelyn Stark goes a little further out of the room without moving. There is a version of this where the boy wakes up and says a name, and the realm burns by summer. He wakes up and says he thinks he remembers a crow. What follows is the best fortnight anyone in Winterfell has had in 2 years, and it is entirely undignified. Bran cannot walk, and is not going to. Maester Luwin says it plainly on the second day because Maester Luwin has never once softened anything in his life. And the boy takes it the way 7-year-olds take things, which is not all at once. He is furious on the 4th day. He is silent on the 6th. On the 8th, he asks Robb to carry him up to the top of the broken tower, and Robb says no, and they have the worst argument of either of their lives. And on the 9th day, Joffrey Baratheon builds a chair. Badly. It is a genuinely terrible chair. He does it with Micken's help, and Micken's help consists mostly of standing there watching a prince of the Seven Kingdoms hit his own thumb with a hammer. And the wheels are 2 different sizes, and it will not go straight. And the first time they put Bran in it, he goes sideways into a water butt. It is the funniest thing that has happened in that castle since the Harvest. That thing is going to kill him. It's got a fault in the left wheel. It's got a fault in every part of it, boy. It's a fault held together with more fault. Then help me fix it, dog. And the extraordinary thing, the thing Sandor Clegane will still be irritated about years later, is that he does. The second chair takes 11 days and is made by a smith, a kennel master, a scarred killer from the Westerlands, and a boy who has never built anything. And it goes perfectly straight, and Bran Stark uses it for 2 years. There is a version of this conversation that happens in the yard about a month after that, between Robb Stark and Joffrey Baratheon, and it is short. "I should have made the chair. You'd have made a better one." "That's not what I mean." "I know what you mean. You've been here half a year, and you sat with my brother every night for 9 weeks, and I didn't know. I live here. I'm his brother. I didn't know. You were running the castle while your father was... busy. Somebody had to." Don't do that thing where you make it easy for me. I have been doing that to you since the day you arrived, and it turns out it's unbearable, so stop." Joffrey Baratheon starts laughing, and cannot stop for some time. And Robb Stark eventually joins in, and that is the moment. Not the chair, not the horse, not the cells. That is the actual moment the 2 of them become brothers. Act 6. The Lioness comes north. The name the assassin gave up was worth exactly what Ned paid for it, which is to say it was true, and it destroyed him. It was not Cersei Lannister. That is the part that undoes him. A queen who wanted a crippled Stark boy dead would have been simple. It would have made the 9 days into arithmetic he could live with. What the man gave up was a name in Wintertown, a factor for a Braavosi trading house, 3 years resident, unremarkable. And behind that factor, a chain of hands. And at the end of that chain, a purse that came out of the crown's own treasury, out of accounts that had been quietly bleeding for a decade under a master of coin with a mockingbird on his cloak. Peter Baelish did not order Bran Stark killed. Peter Baelish loaned a dagger to somebody and made certain the wrong house got blamed for it, because a war between wolves and lions was worth more to him than any 2 boys in Westeros. And Ned Stark, sitting in his solar with that in front of him, understands that he tore a man apart over 9 days to find out that his enemy is a man he has met twice and disliked mildly. He writes the accusation out that same night, 4 pages, every link in the chain, addressed to the king. He gets as far as the seal. Then he thinks about what he actually has, which is the word of a hired knife extracted over 9 days by a method he cannot describe in a letter to anybody, against the word of the crown's own master of coin. He thinks about what happens to a man who accuses Peter Baelish of anything without proof, and then about the fact that the only person alive who could corroborate it is Catelyn's sister, who has not answered a raven from Winterfell in 2 years. And he thinks, this is the part that eats him. He thinks about the fact that if he sends this, someone is going to ask him how he came by the name. He burns it. Second letter. He never tells Catelyn who it was either. That is 3 then, and it is worth counting them out loud, because the man who did them spent 35 years being the one person in Westeros who never had to. He tore a man apart over 9 days. He buried the name it cost him rather than answer for how he got it. And he let his own wife go on believing a lion crippled her son for the rest of her life, because the truth would have required him to explain the first 2. Nobody ever finds out about the third one at all. 2 years and 1 month after the royal column went south, Cersei Lannister comes north with 40 riders, without her husband's leave and without announcing herself, and stops at the gates of Winterfell. She has waited exactly as long as she was told to wait. She has been faultless. That is the part that everyone underestimates. The reunion in the yard is the single worst thing anyone present has ever had to watch, and it is worst because it is real. She comes off her horse and goes to her son and holds his face in both hands and cries, actually cries, in front of 40 men in half the north, and Cersei Lannister does not cry in front of anybody. You're taller than me, I know. They have made you a northerner. Gods, look at your hands. Mother, no, let me. 2 years. 2 years, and I sent you 51 letters, and I got back 31, and every single one of them was written like a report. Do you know what it is like to be handed a letter from your own child that reads like a steward's account of a harvest? Come home, Joff. Come home with me now, today. I have horses. Your father will bluster for a fortnight, and then he will forget. He forgets everything. And this is where the video you are watching either was worth an hour of your life or was not, because what happens next is very quiet. He does not refuse her. He says, not today. She asks him what that means, and he cannot explain it because he is 14 and he does not have the words yet, and what he actually says comes out badly and hurts her. I have to finish the horse. I am sorry? There's a horse. Ash. He's sound now, but there's a mare with the same thing in her foreleg, and Farland says, I know how to do the poultice better than the boys do. And I do. I actually do. And if I go now, somebody will do it wrong and she'll be lame for good. I know what that sounds like. I know exactly what that sounds like. But it's the first true thing I have ever been able to say about myself. And I'm not going to give it up on a Tuesday because you came. There is a silence in that yard you could put a knife through. And what is on Cersei Lannister's face is not grief. Everyone watching expects grief. What is actually there is horror. The specific, total horror of a woman who has just heard her own child speak in a stranger's voice about a horse. She has spent 2 years afraid they would make him weak. It never once occurred to her that they would make him someone else. Her hands come off his face very slowly. Say that again. Mother? No, say the words again. Say the sentence you just said to me in front of 40 men. He doesn't. He can't. Eddard Stark did not take you from me. I could have fought that. I have fought worse than that and won. He killed you. He took my son apart in a stable yard over 2 winters, and he built something in the shape of him, and it stands there, wearing your face, and it is talking to me about a mare's foreleg. That is not fair. No, it isn't. And I would still burn this castle to the ground to get 1 hour of you back, and every single person standing in this yard knows it, including him. Cersei Lannister stays 11 days. She is charming. She is watchful. She takes the measure of every single person in that castle, And what she finds is not what she came for, and she is far too clever to pretend otherwise. She finds a son who stands up when Lady Catelyn enters a room. She finds him laughing at something a 9-year-old Stark girl said, actually laughing, with his head back. She finds him going at the 11th hour of the night to sit with a crippled boy, and when she asks him why, he shrugs and says he started when Bran was asleep and never got round to stopping. And on the 9th of those 11 days, she has the conversation with Eddard Stark that this entire story has been walking toward, in the Godswood, alone, with no witnesses at all. You have taken my son. I have kept a boy for 2 years and given him back better than he came. Ask him whether he was taken. Do not do that. Do not stand in front of me with that face and pretend this was fostering. You have unmade him and made him again in your own image, and he will never be mine now, not really, and you know it, and you are pleased. He is not in my image, my lady. If he were in my image, he would be considerably worse. She turns. What does that mean? And here Eddard Stark makes his choice, and it is not the honorable one, and he makes it with his eyes open, exactly the way he made the one in the cells. It means that 2 years ago, I spent 9 days in a room with a man because someone tried to kill my son in his bed. And I did things in that room that your father would have recognized and approved of. And your boy is the one who found me. Not my wife, not my sons, not one of my sworn men. Yours. And he did not run to you with it, and he did not use it, and he has never once mentioned it to anybody but Clegane. He is 14 years old, and he is already a better man than I was at 35, and I did not put that in him, and neither did you. He did it himself, while nobody was looking, and both of us were busy. Cersei Lannister looks at him for a very long time. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked me for the truth, and because I owe him one honest thing, and I cannot give it to him directly. And because if you take him now, and you can, he will go if you truly ask him. We both know that. I want you to take him knowing exactly what he is, so that you cannot do it by accident. She rides south on the 11th day. She does not take him. Nobody ever finds out what it cost her, because she is Cersei Lannister, and she gets all the way out of the gate and around the bend of the King's Road before her face changes at all. Act 7. The Letter. Joffrey Baratheon is 15 when it ends, and it ends on an ordinary morning with a raven. The seal is Stannis Baratheon's, the hand's seal now, which Stannis uses with a kind of grim precision, exactly centered, exactly stamped. Ned takes it in his solar and reads it twice, and then a third time, and then he sits down. Stannis has spent 3 years being the most hated man in King's Landing and the best hand the realm has had in 20. And somewhere in the second of those years, he did what Jon Arryn did before him and started pulling on the crown's accounts. And from the accounts to a dead man's papers, and from the papers to a very old book of lineages in the Red Keep's library. Every Baratheon for 300 years, black of hair. Every one. Robert's brothers, Robert's father, every bastard of Robert's body that Stannis could put a name to, from the Vale to Storm's End, black-haired to the last, including a girl in a King's Landing brothel not 2 moons old, and 3 golden children in the royal apartments. Stannis writes it plainly because Stannis does not know how to write anything else. He writes that he intends to lay it before the king within the month. He writes that he is telling Eddard Stark first as a courtesy, because there is a boy in Eddard Stark's care whose whole life is about to be taken off him, and it is only decent that the man who has raised him for 3 years be given a fortnight's warning. And here is what that letter means, and this is the promise made at the beginning of this video, and here is where it gets kept. That letter makes Eddard Stark the most powerful man in Westeros. It ends House Lannister, Cersei and Jaime both, by the axe, within the year. It disinherits 3 children and puts Stannis Baratheon 1 heartbeat from a throne. Stannis, who owes the North nothing and likes it less. It gives Ned the ability to hand the realm to whoever he chooses. And there is a 15-year-old boy in the training yard below that window who has spent 3 years becoming a person and who is, at this moment, in this letter, in this room, nothing at all. Not a prince, not an heir, not even a Baratheon. Just the son of a brother and a sister, with no name that anybody will let him keep. Eddard Stark sits with that for the better part of a day. Then he goes down to the yard and asks Joffrey Baratheon to walk with him to the Godswood, and he tells him. All of it. Straight through, no softening, the way you tell a man and not a boy. Joffrey does not say anything for a long time. Then, does Robb know? Does Jon? No, nobody knows. Stannis, myself, and now you. Right. He puts his hands on his knees and breathes for a moment like a man who has been running. So I'm nothing. You are a great deal. You are simply not going to be king. No, you don't understand. That's not... I have been the worst person I know how to be for 12 years, and I have spent 3 years trying to stop. And the entire time, every single day, the thing underneath all of it was that I was going to be king one day, and I had better not be a monster when it happened. That was the whole of it. That was the frame. Take that away, and what was any of it for? And Eddard Stark says the truest thing he says in this entire story. For the horse. For my son's room at the 11th hour. For not telling anybody what you saw in my cells when it would have bought you your freedom in an afternoon. You did all of that when the crown was still coming, and you had no idea any of it was going to be tested. Lad, it has just been tested. Right here. That is what a test looks like. Nobody ever gets told it is happening. Then he does the second thing. He takes the letter and he holds it in the fire in the Godswood brazier until there is nothing left of it at all. Third letter. The last one. And the only dangerous one. A letter that could have ended a war before it started, put a lawful king on the Iron Throne, and made Eddard Stark the most powerful man in the Seven Kingdoms. And he stood in the snow and burned it, because he had a choice between a kingdom and a boy, and he picked the boy. You can't. That's treason. I know exactly what it is. Then why? Because Stannis will send another one. He will send it to the king, and the king will believe it, and everything in it will happen anyway. And there is nothing on this earth that I can do to stop a single hour of it. Which means this letter was never a weapon. It was only ever a fortnight. And I have decided to spend the fortnight on you, so that when it comes, you will have had 2 weeks to be a person before the realm tells you what you are. That is all I have got. It is not much, and it is not honorable, and I do not care. Stannis Baratheon lays it before Robert 18 days later. But that, the trial, the 4,000 swords that come down the King's Road, what Jaime Lannister does in the throne room, and the question of what a boy with no name and no claim and one true friend does when the entire realm comes for him. That is part 2. Stannis Baratheon is already on the road. Tywin Lannister is already calling his banners. And under a bed in Winterfell, there is a locked box with the truth in it that will destroy every one of them. But for now, for 14 days, a bastard and a prince get to be people. Because there is one thing in this story that nobody has accounted for. Not Stannis, not Cersei, not Tywin, not even Ned. There is a second boy in that castle with the wrong name. And when the realm finishes proving that Joffrey Baratheon has no right to the Iron Throne, there is going to be a locked box under Eddard Stark's bed, and a set of letters in a dead woman's hand, and a 17-year-old bastard in the yard hauling 4 buckets because nobody has ever given him anything. That's our theory. Did Ned Stark save that boy, or did he just make him worth destroying? If this gets 4,000 likes, we will release part 2, The Boy with No Name. Tell us in the comments whether you would have burned the letter. Until then, remember, the night is dark, and the North remembers.